Good morning. It is Friday, December 3rd, 2021. I'm back here for Daily Shakeup 438. And today we're talking about change. You can't fully see the sign behind me, but it says change. And often we forget that they are so interconnected, right? If we believe we have no choices, then we're going to feel like we can't make any change. That's why the ownership of the choices is so empowering and so critical to remember what are the choices we can make to create the change we desire. I also think it's important to look a little differently at change. So look at your personal behaviors. If I want to change how I'm interacting or how I'm showing up or how I'm acting or reacting in a certain situation, there's a couple ways to do it. One is to be aware when it's happening and make a different choice in the moment, right? I sense that I'm behaving a certain way, reacting a certain way, but I catch myself because I'm aware and I make a different choice in that moment, which changes how I show up, changes my behavior, hopefully changes the experience and the impact, right? But what if I'm not aware that it's happening in the moment, or at least not in the beginning, or no one's highlighting it for me? I'm seeing it in the rearview mirror after it's happened, whether it's quickly after or longer after. I look back and say, oh, there was that behavior, there was that action. I want to do that differently. But then I get caught up in the moment again. So this is the key. Either I can be aware of it in the moment and change the behavior by a different choice, or I can set up a system or a different approach, make some choices ahead of time that create the change I desire, even if I'm not catching myself in the moment. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you are aware that a certain person and you're on your team or in your life triggers you regularly with certain behavior. You may say, I don't want to be triggered. Don't not being something doesn't usually work well. And you want to catch yourself, but you are aware that what the trigger is. So you may set up a system or a different means of communication, or tell yourself ahead of time to set up a scenario so that you're not going to have that reactive triggered situation. Let's look at a real life example in our personal lives that some of us may struggle with from time to time. And lots of time, people during COVID have said this to me. They're saying, I feel like I'm drinking too much. One way to approach it is to say, I'm going to drink less, or I'm going to stop drinking. Now, not saying what's right or wrong for you, but the challenge of stopping something or doing less of something is, what does less really mean? And it's often more challenging. So a different approach, instead of making a choice in the moment to change the behavior, what if we set up a system ahead of time and said, when I'm drinking, whatever the context is, I'm going to have a glass of water, a glass of soda, a glass of tea, a glass of coffee, a glass of Gatorade, whatever it is, in between the drinks. So my new system, my new pattern, my new behavior, my new hopefully habit is to do something, the outcome of which is less drinking, but it wasn't a matter of saying, I'm going to drink less. I think that's just a good example. But the point here is, back to the beginning, change happens because we make different choices. The problem is, if we're caught up in the moment, it's more choices. So one solution is become more aware, or get people around us to help us be more aware, so we catch ourselves ahead of time and make a different choice. But if we're not catching ourselves and we're typically seeing it in the rearview mirror that we'd like to make different choices, let's set those choices up in advance before we have the experience, before we get in that emotion, before we get into that reaction. Please send me your questions. I'd love to hear more. I think there's a lot to this. There's a simplicity to it, but also some complexities to it. I really feel this is a way that we can create more change in our lives, how we're experiencing life, how we're showing up in life, and certainly how we're leading, by either catching ourselves in the moment, or when we don't, setting ourselves up with different patterns at different time to minimize those in the moment choices being made. That's it for today. Keep taking care of yourself and everyone around you. By all means, stay connected.